This slide set deals with the begin and end of TCP connections. Since TCP is a connection-oriented protocol, it has the three phases: connection setup, connection use, and connection decommissioning. The connection setup is also called three-way handshake because it comprises three steps. On the left and right on the slide, you see internal TCP states of client and server. The server has to be in the listen state to be ready for requests from clients. The first step of the connection setup is that a client sends a TCP segment. Segment is a name for TCP data units. This first segment is called the SYN segment because the SYN bit is set in the TCP header. The TCP header contains a set of flags for connection control, but the SYN bit is the only bit which is 1 in this TCP header. All others are 0. In the SYN segment, the client also puts an initial sequence number, which is abbreviated as client ISN. This number is chosen by random so that the sequence numbers do not start with 0. By the way, the default configuration of Wireshark is to show relative sequence numbers so that it does not show the actual start value, and you may assume that the numbers start with 0. The second step is called SYN-ACK because the flags SYN and ACK are set. You can say that this step combines two segments. It confirms the reception of the SYN segment. The ACK flag shows that the value in the acknowledgement number field is now valid. It contains the value client ISN plus 1. In TCP, the value in the acknowledgement number field always does not indicate the last correctly received byte, but the next byte which is expected. In addition, the segment is also a request from the server to the client to establish a connection. This is required because TCP connections are bidirectional. Therefore, the server chooses also a random initial sequence number called server ISN and sets the SYN bit. Once the client gets the segment, the connection is successfully established from the client perspective. The client confirms the segment by setting only the ACK bit and no longer the SYN bit in a confirmation segment. After receiving this confirmation segment, the connection is established also from the server's point of view. By the way, important parameters, such as the maximum segment size, are also agreed in the segments of the three-way handshake. The termination of a TCP connection is done in 4 steps. In this example, the client starts to terminate the connection, but these steps could also be initiated by the server. The client sends a TCP segment where the FIN bit is set to 1. In all the segments that we find here, the ACK bit is always set to confirm previously sent data, but this is not shown in the flow graph to highlight the closing process. The segment containing the FIN bit is confirmed by the server by an acknowledgement segment, and later the server also sends a segment where the FIN bit is set. You see that these segments are not combined like in the SYN-ACK segment. The reason is that the server may want to send additional data segments and therefore does not want to terminate the connection immediately. The FIN segment from the server is confirmed by the client, and then the server can change its state into closed. The client waits for some time and then also changes its state into the closed state. The reason for this may not be obvious for you. We have to take into account that this flowchart shows a situation where everything works as expected, which is not necessarily the case. All TCP segments can get lost in the network, and TCP has to take care to repeat them if necessary. Let us assume that the very last segment with the acknowledgement is lost. This means that the server does not go into the closed state and it repeats the segment with the set fin bit. If the client is already in the closed state, this is bad because it will then not confirm the reception of this segment again. Therefore, it has to stay ready for some time to be able to repeat the confirmation. By the way, the introduction of additional acknowledgements, for example that the server acknowledges the client acknowledgement, is not helpful because such an acknowledgement can also get lost.